ध्यान से सुनो students, listen up, because today we are diving into what is literally one of the absolute most important units for your exams. Welcome to the Explainer. We are tackling Chapter 3, Unit 3 of the Sale of Goods Act 1930, which is Transfer of Ownership and Delivery of Goods. Trust me, if you want that in-depth conceptual clarity to secure those heavy marks in the exam, you are in the exact right place. Let's make this CA journey easy, all right?
So here is our quick roadmap for today. We're going to cover the core concept of ownership, specific versus unascertained goods, the goods on approval rule, why risk follows ownership, the NEMO dot rule, and finally, we'll look at the exceptions to that rule. Let's just jump right in.
Starting off with Part 1, the core concept of ownership. Now, why are we so obsessed with the exact second that property passes? Well, it's because timing completely dictates your legal rights and your financial liabilities. We need to clear up the biggest misconception students have right now. Having the goods physically in your hands, which we call delivery of goods or physical possession, is completely different from the passing of property. Passing of property means you actually own the legal title. You can physically hold the goods but not be the owner, or conversely, you can be the full legal owner while the goods are literally still sitting in the seller's shop. Concept clear, wa?
And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates why that difference matters so much. Section 26 gives us the golden rule, which is risk prima facie passes with ownership. Imagine a fire breaks out in the warehouse and the goods just burn down to ashes. Now, kaun pay karega? Who actually bears the loss? The answer is super simple. The person who held the legal ownership at that exact moment. The owner pays. Simple as that.
So in any contract of sale, we're basically dealing with three distinct stages. You've got the passing of property, the delivery of goods, and the passing of risk. Now, they don't have to happen at the exact same time. But remember this, the passing of risk is almost always glued right to the passing of property, totally regardless of where the physical delivery actually is.
Moving on to Section 2, specific versus unascertained goods.
To figure out exactly when ownership transfers, think of this kind of like the sorting hat of legal rules. We really have to look at the current state of the goods. For specific goods, goods that are clearly identified and agreed upon at the time of the contract, if they are already in a deliverable state, like, say, buying a TV straight from a shop, the property passes immediately. But wait, what if you buy a laptop and it still needs a Windows OS installed? Property absolutely does not pass until the seller installs it and actually notifies the buyer. Or consider that famous ICAI carpet example. A sells carpets that still need to be laid down. If they get stolen before being laid, the seller bears the loss, purely because the act wasn't finished, so property hasn't passed yet.
चलो concept clear करते हैं. Let's make this crystal clear for unascertain goods. These are goods defined only by description, like saying, I want 100 bags of wheat from a massive godown. You literally cannot transfer ownership until you separate those specific 100 bags. This whole magic process is called appropriation. The goods must match the description, they have to be put in a deliverable state and be unconditionally set aside for the contract, with the assent of the other party. Once that whole checklist is done, boom, ownership transfers.
Now pay very close attention to this rule in Section 23, subsection 2. If a seller delivers the goods to a railway or a carrier for transmission to the buyer, and they don't reserve the right of disposal, guys, that act alone is considered unconditional appropriation. Ownership instantly passes to the buyer the very second it's handed over to the carrier. So if that train crashes, it is the buyer's loss.
All right, Section 3, the goods on approval rule. Listen, this is an absolute favorite scenario for ICAI examiners. For goods sent on approval, when does the buyer actually become the owner? Well, it happens in three ways. First, they just simply say, hey, I approve. Second, they keep the goods past the agreed return date without saying a word. In this case, silence literally means acceptance. And third, they do an act equivalent to acceptance. Think of a student who takes a musical instrument on approval. If he turns around and pledges that instrument to a bank for a loan, well, he just acted like an owner. Property immediately passes to him.
Let's look at Section 4, risk follows the ownership. Building on what we just covered, we need to strongly reinforce the stakes here. Never ever forget this golden rule. Unless the parties agree otherwise, risk strictly follows ownership. Let me repeat that. Whether delivery has been made or not, if you are the legal owner, you carry the entire risk of accidental loss. Physical location is completely 100% irrelevant if the title has passed. But wait. Let's look at a bit of a dramatic plot twist. What happens if you, in complete innocence, buy goods from someone who isn't the real owner? Like if a thief steals a phone and sells it to you at a local coffee shop. Do you legally own that phone now? What do you think?
That brings us to Section 5, nemo.quod non habet.
This right here is a heavy-hitting legal maxim, and it's practically guaranteed to fetch you marks if you quote it properly in the exam. Nemo dat quod non habet. It literally translates to, no one can give what he has not got. A seller simply cannot give a buyer a better title than they themselves actually possess. So if the seller is a thief, their title is a big fat zero. Therefore, your title, even if you paid good money and acted in total good faith, is also zero. The true owner can legally demand that phone right back from you.
And finally, Section 6, exceptions to the rule.
But hey, the law isn't entirely heartless to innocent buyers. There are some absolutely crucial loopholes designed to protect everyday commercial transactions. In very specific, exam-critical situations, a non-owner can actually pass a perfectly good title to a buyer. This includes sales by a mercantile agent, a joint owner, someone holding goods under a voidable contract, or even a seller continuing in possession after a sale. Let's break down the absolute most important ones.
The mercantile agent exception is tested all the time. Exam direct question av det ASB. For a buyer to get a good title from an agent who doesn't actually own the goods, 3 steps must be true. Step 1, the agent has physical possession with the true owner's consent. Step 2, the agent makes the sale in their ordinary course of business. And step 3, which is the most important, the buyer must act in absolute good faith without knowing the agent lacked authority. If all 3 align perfectly, the buyer actually wins the title.
Let's quickly compare 2 more massive exceptions. First up is the joint owner exception. Basically, if one co-owner has sole physical possession with the permission of the other owners, they can legally sell the whole thing to a good faith buyer. Second is the voidable contract exception. Just imagine X fraudulently tricks Y into giving him a diamond ring. X doesn't have a perfect title, it's voidable. But before Y realizes the fraud and actually cancels the contract, X sells the ring to Z, who's just an innocent purchaser. According to Section 29, Z actually gets a good title simply because the original contract wasn't terminated in time. Crazy, right? So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to really cement your learning. If passing of property, delivery of goods, and passing of risk are 3 completely separate events in the timeline, which one truly dictates who bears the ultimate loss when you are staring down a massive, complex case study in your exam? Remember the golden rule, guys. Risk follows ownership. Master this one concept, and you've practically mastered the unit. Keep studying hard, stay focused, and I will see you in the next one.